She kissed a stranger to escape her toxic ex, unaware he was the vampire king who never let her go. Neon signs flickered through the wet haze, casting ghostly colors on the slick cobblestones. Alara's heart pounded as she ran, her coat clinging to her in the damp air, and the echo of her heels against the stones seemed louder than the storm itself. She could hear the faint, persistent sound of footsteps behind her, though every time she looked back, the street was empty. She ducked into a narrow alley, walls slick with rain and streaked with graffiti, hoping to lose whoever, or whatever, was following her. Her breath came in sharp, ragged gasps. Her ex-boyfriend, Damon, had been unbearable enough at parties and dinners, but now, after the last incident, she knew she had to escape completely. She couldn't let him find her, not again. The alley turned darker, the city lights barely reaching it. She pressed herself against the wall, chest heaving, listening. A shadow shifted at the far end. She spun, panic rising, ready to scream, but froze. A man stepped out from the mist, tall, broad-shouldered, cloaked in darkness and rain. His hair was black as midnight, and his eyes, she couldn't look away. They were stormy, almost glowing, filled with a strange intensity that sent a shiver down her spine. "You're running," he said softly, his voice deep and smooth, almost a purr. Alara's pulse jumped. "Stay away from me," she shouted, though her voice trembled. Her hand went to her coat pocket where her phone was, but the battery was dead. She was trapped. The man didn't move closer, yet she felt drawn to him as if an invisible thread pulled her forward. Panic mingled with something else, a dangerous thrill she didn't want to feel but couldn't resist. I just need to," she stammered. She felt tears prick her eyes, part frustration, part fear. Without thinking, in a moment of reckless courage, she stepped forward and kissed him. It was impulsive, wild, a mixture of defiance and desperation. She wanted control, wanted to scare him off, or maybe prove she wasn't afraid. But when their lips met, the world seemed to shatter and reform around her. The rain didn't touch her. The neon lights blurred into streaks of fire and water. His eyes closed for a fraction of a second and then opened again, fixing her with a gaze that seemed to see every corner of her soul. Alara pulled back, gasping. I'm sorry, but he didn't speak. He only stared. There was something in his expression, something ancient and unyielding that made her knees weak. He was calm, yet dangerous, and she didn't know why, but she felt like she had just touched something forbidden and beautiful. "I said stay away," she whispered, stepping backward. She wanted to run again, to disappear into the rain and the city lights, but her body betrayed her, frozen in a mix of fear and fascination. The stranger didn't follow. He just tilted his head slightly, as if he understood her instinct to flee, yet knew she couldn't. His eyes didn't leave hers. "You can't run forever," he said softly, voice low, carrying a weight that made her stomach twist. "Not from me." Alara's heart pounded. I don't know you. I don't even know what you—" She cut herself off, realizing how absurd it sounded. She was talking to a stranger, one she had kissed seconds ago in a moment of chaos. And yet, somehow, she felt exposed, as if he could see her deepest secrets. She turned and ran, slipping through the alley, rain soaking her hair and clothes, adrenaline keeping her legs moving despite the cold. She didn't look back, though she could still feel his gaze following her, sharp and burning like sunlight on water. She reached the main street, panting, and finally allowed herself a moment to think. What had she just done? She had kissed a complete stranger in a panic. But there was something about him, something that didn't belong to this world, something magnetic and dangerous that had drawn her in. And despite herself, a part of her wanted to see him again. For hours, she wandered through the city, trying to calm her racing heart. She ducked into cafes, lit cigarettes she didn't smoke, stared out of rain-smeared windows. Every time she thought about the man, the stranger, her stomach twisted with a mixture of dread and longing. Who was he? Why had he made her feel so small and yet so alive at the same time? She didn't know it, but he was already moving through the shadows, following her with patient precision. He was more than a man, he was something else entirely. The kind of being who had walked this world long before cities were built and would walk long after they fell. And once he had marked someone, once his attention settled, he did not let go. Ilara's phone buzzed. A message from Damon. "I know where you are, come back." Her hands shook. Fear flared, hot and raw. She crumpled the phone in her fist and threw it into a puddle. She would not go back. She had almost reached the edge of despair, almost ready to believe she was alone in the world when she felt it, the presence again. Not behind her this time, but beside her. She froze. Rain drenched her hair and coat. The city seemed to hush around her. And then she saw him, stepping from the shadows, wet and unbothered by the storm. The glow in his eyes seemed brighter now, like embers in the dark. "You can't hide," he said, voice calm but filled with power. "And you shouldn't." Ilara's knees shook. What are you?" she asked, even as part of her knew the answer. He smiled faintly, a shadow of amusement that sent a thrill through her. "I am someone who doesn't let go. Someone who sees what others try to hide. And you've already drawn me in." She swallowed hard. Her pulse raced, but a part of her wanted to lean into the danger, to trust him even though every instinct screamed to run. There was something about him that felt inevitable, like a storm rolling over the city, unstoppable and fierce. "You don't even know me," she whispered, though she barely believed her own words. "I know enough," he said softly, "enough to know that you are mine. Even if you do not realize it yet." Ilara's chest tightened. She wanted to step back, to argue, to flee, but she couldn't. There was a gravity in his presence that held her in place, made her heart skip, made her forget the rain, the city, the world outside the alley. Her own fear and defiance surged. "I'm not yours," she cried. He tilted his head, considering her words like a curious puzzle. "Not yet," he said, "but perhaps you will be, or perhaps you will try to run, and I will follow." She wanted to run. She wanted to tell him to leave. But even as she turned, even as she pushed herself to move, she felt the pull of something larger than both of them, something that neither fear nor logic could fight. And so she ran again through the rain-soaked streets, the echo of her heels against the stones like a heartbeat of desperation. But somewhere behind her, hidden in the mist and shadows, he moved with silent grace, his gaze never leaving her. Ilara didn't know it yet, but her life had shifted in that instant, the moment her lips had touched his. The night, the storm, the city itself seemed to bend around a fate that had been set long before she was born. And the stranger she had kissed, the stranger who was no mere man, would not let her go. She ran until her legs ached and her lungs burned. She ducked into a quiet side street, hoping to lose him in the dark. And for a moment she thought she had succeeded. The alley was empty. The night seemed still. But then, as she leaned against the wall, trying to catch her breath, she heard it. A soft, almost melodic whisper. "You cannot run from what has already claimed you." Ilara froze. Her heart threatened to burst from her chest. Somewhere in the shadows, the stranger waited, calm, patient, eternal. And in that moment she realized something terrifying and exhilarating. No matter what she did, no matter where she went, she would never escape him. The rain continued to fall, drenching the city in silver light. And somewhere in the shadows beyond the mist, the Vampire King watched, waiting, and already beginning a pursuit that would change both their lives forever. The city seemed quieter after the storm, though the streets were still slick with rain. Ilara moved carefully, her coat wrapped tightly around her. The events of the previous night haunted her. She could still feel the stranger's lips on hers, the intensity of his eyes, and the strange, magnetic pull that had frozen her in place. Her mind told her to forget him, to focus on safety, but her heart kept replaying the moment like a dangerous melody. She tried to act normal, slipping into cafes, walking down crowded streets, pretending she was just another face in the city. But something felt off. Shadows seemed to linger longer than they should. A silhouette always seemed to appear where she did not expect it. Her instincts screamed that she was being watched. And she was. From the edge of the city, hidden by darkness and mist, he observed her. Caius moved silently, a shadow among shadows, his presence unseen yet undeniable. He didn't rush toward her. That would be too crude, too obvious. Instead, he let her flee, let her feel freedom, because the pursuit itself was a test, one that would reveal her spirit, her courage, and most importantly, her heart. Alara's phone buzzed again. She almost dropped it in panic but forced herself to glance at the screen. Another message from Damon. "You can't hide forever, I will find you." She threw the phone into a puddle, letting the rain wash it away. She was done with him, done with fear. She refused to be trapped by anyone ever again. Her life would be hers. As she continued walking, she didn't notice the figure in a darkened alley just ahead. He stepped out silently, his presence brushing against her consciousness like a cold wind. "You shouldn't be out alone," he said. His voice was low, calm, and filled with a strange command that made her stop in her tracks. Alara's heart raced. "Who are you?" she demanded. Her voice shook more from fear than from anger. "I've told you before," he said, stepping closer. "You cannot run from me. Nor should you want to." She shook her head, fear and frustration mingling in a storm inside her. "I don't even know you. You can't just—" "You kissed me," he interrupted softly, almost a whisper, yet sharp as a blade. "And in that kiss you gave me permission. Even if you don't understand it yet." Her stomach twisted. The words should have made her furious. Instead, they made her heart clench. Something about the way he spoke made it hard to breathe, made the rain, the streets, and the world itself feel unreal. I was scared," she admitted finally. "I didn't know what else to do." "Fear is natural," he said. His eyes softened just slightly. "But it does not excuse running from the truth. The truth is, I am here, and I am not leaving." Alara wanted to argue, but the words caught in her throat. Every instinct told her to run, yet every part of her wanted to stay, to understand him, to see him clearly. She stepped back, regaining some of her courage. "Why are you following me?" He paused. His gaze seemed to pierce her very thoughts. "Because I have been waiting for you, for longer than you can imagine. You are not like the others," she frowned. "I don't understand others." Caius shook his head. "It is not important now. What matters is that you are here alive, and yet you are not free. And freedom is what I want to give you, or what I want to share with you." Alara's chest tightened. The words were strange and beautiful, but terrifying. Sharing freedom with someone else seemed impossible, especially when she had been so careful to claim her independence. "You don't even know me," she said again, more firmly this time. "I know enough," he said, a shadow of a smile crossing his face. "Enough to know that you are stronger than you realize, that you are worth every risk." The streetlights flickered, casting their long shadows onto the wet cobblestones. Alara glanced around nervously. Her mind raced with questions, but one thought dominated all others. She needed to understand him. Who was he? Why did he seem so eternal? "I have to go," she said, stepping toward the end of the street. "You can go," he said softly, "but you cannot hide. And you cannot escape your own heart." Alara froze. His words echoed inside her, uncomfortably accurate. She did not fully understand them, yet they stirred something deep within her. She wanted to ignore it, to focus on survival, but her curiosity tugged her back, pulling her toward the mystery that was him. The days passed, though they felt like a blur. Alara kept moving, changing apartments, taking different routes to work, avoiding places she used to frequent. She did not want to see him. She did not want to feel that strange pull again. But fate had other plans. One evening, as she walked home along a quiet street, a figure stepped from the shadows. She froze immediately. It was him. "Caius," she said, almost a whisper. "I see you again," he said, his voice low, almost a murmur in the night. "And yet you do not speak to me as you did before." I can't," she admitted. "I don't understand what is happening. Why are you here?" "I am here because I care for you," he said simply. "Because you belong to no one but yourself, and yet I cannot ignore what has already begun between us. You are part of my life now, whether you wish it or not. Alara's heart pounded. The words were terrifying, yet filled her with a strange warmth. There was a pull she could not resist, a connection she could not explain. You're not human, are you? She asked finally, the truth forming in her mind. He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he looked at her with a soft intensity, like he was measuring her very soul. Finally, he said, "No, I am not, but that does not make you less or more. It only means that what we are is different from anything you have known." Alara's mind raced. The city seemed to fade around them, leaving only the rain, the shadows, and him. She felt small, exposed, yet strangely alive. "I don't know if I can trust you," she whispered. "You already have," he replied softly. "From the moment you kissed me, that kiss, it was not just a mistake. It was recognition, and recognition cannot be denied." Her chest tightened and she struggled to breathe. Recognition. The word echoed in her mind. Could it be true? Could she really feel something so deep for someone she barely knew? Before she could respond, a noise startled her. Footsteps quick and heavy approaching from the street behind them. She turned to see a figure in the shadows. Fear gripped her heart. Caius moved without hesitation, his hand reaching for her. "Stay close," he said. His voice was commanding yet gentle. The figure stepped into the light. It was a man, rough-looking, eyes filled with suspicion. He glared at Caius. "Who are you? What are you doing here?" Caius did not flinch. He simply stepped slightly forward, placing himself between Alara and the stranger. "You are mistaken if you think I am here for you," he said calmly. "I am here to protect her." Alara's heart raced. Protect her? Who was this man, and why did she feel safer with Caius than anyone else? The stranger growled, as if sensing something he could not see. "Stay out of this," he spat. Caius's eyes darkened, a subtle but unmistakable warning. "Leave now," he said, voice low and dangerous, "or you will regret it." The man hesitated, sensing the power in Caius's presence. Slowly he stepped back, then turned and vanished into the night. Alara exhaled shakily. What was that?" Caius turned to her, his expression softening. "Danger," he said simply. "The world you see is only a small part of what exists. There are forces that do not wish you well. I will keep you safe if you allow me." She swallowed hard, a mixture of fear and longing flooding her chest. "And if I do," he studied her, eyes piercing her very thoughts, "then I will not leave. I will wait. Because some things are not meant to be avoided." Alara's knees shook, and for the first time she realized she could not deny the truth. The stranger, the vampire king, had entered her life in a way that she could never ignore. The pull between them was undeniable, a dangerous, beautiful force that neither time nor distance could sever. And as the rain continued to fall around them, she understood something she could not yet say aloud. Her life was no longer her own. Caius reached out, gently touching her hand. "Do not fear," he said softly. "I will not harm you. I only wish to show you the world beyond this one, and perhaps to show you yourself." Alara looked into his eyes, feeling the weight of centuries, the darkness and the light within him. She wanted to step back, to run, to reclaim her freedom. But part of her knew that this was only the beginning of a journey she could not escape, and a story that would change everything she believed about life, love, and fate. And somewhere in the shadows, beyond the glow of the streetlights, another figure watched them, waiting, a silent threat that neither of them could yet see. Alara shivered, not from the cold, but from the awareness that her life had shifted forever. She did not yet know the full power of the stranger beside her or the secrets he carried. But she knew one thing clearly: she could not walk away. Not now. Not ever. The forest outside the city was silent, except for the soft rustle of leaves and the distant cry of an owl. Alara's footsteps crunched on the damp earth as she followed Caius, her mind a storm of questions and fear. Every shadow seemed alive, every tree a sentinel watching her. She had been warned countless times by herself not to trust strangers, especially ones who moved like shadows. Yet something about Caius, His calm presence, the strange pull in his eyes, made her follow without hesitation. They reached the edge of the forest where ancient stone walls rose like the skeleton of a long-forgotten castle. Mist curled around the battlements, and faint candlelight glowed through high windows. The air was heavy, carrying a scent of old stone and faint magic. Caius paused at the entrance, turning to her. "This is where I live," he said softly. "This place is my home, but it is also a prison of my own making." Alara looked up at the towering walls, shivering. "It's beautiful and terrifying," she whispered. He offered a faint smile, the kind that hinted at centuries of secrets. "You are safe here, though. No one can reach you." She hesitated, the weight of the situation pressing on her. "Safe, but why me? Why are you helping me?" Caius's eyes darkened, a shadow passing over them. "Because I have lived centuries, seen empires rise and fall, and yet I have never met anyone like you. You are strong, defiant, alive in ways I admire." Alara's heart twisted. The words were beautiful, but there was danger behind them, a power she could not yet understand. She wanted to step back, to remind herself that she was human and he was not. But something in his gaze made her pause, made her want to believe him. They walked through the castle's massive doors, the sound echoing through the halls lined with towering statues of forgotten kings and queens. Candles flickered along the walls, casting dancing shadows that seemed almost alive. "This place, it feels alive," Alara said. "Like it's watching me," Caius nodded. "It is. Every corner, every stone has memory. This is not just my home, it is a place where power lingers, where the past waits for the present to understand it." As they moved deeper into the castle, Alara noticed the contrast between the grandeur and the quiet darkness. Tapestries hung from the walls, depicting battles, alliances, and strange creatures she could barely name. The air was thick with history, heavy with unspoken truths. "Why do you keep me here?" she asked suddenly, unable to stop the question. "I don't belong in this world. I'm just a woman trying to live her life." "You belong wherever you choose to belong," Caius said gently. "But right now, this is where you need to be. There are forces that would harm you, and I will not let them. Not now, not ever." Alara's chest tightened. The sincerity in his voice made her pulse quicken, but it also made her wary. She had been betrayed before, trusted the wrong people. Yet there was a part of her, a small, trembling part, that wanted to believe him, to trust him completely. As they reached a tall, arched window overlooking the forest, Caius stopped and looked at her. "I have lived in darkness for a long time," he said quietly. "Centuries. And I have done things, terrible things. I am not proud of who I have been. But since I met you, I feel the possibility of change, redemption, of something lighter." Alara's breath caught. She had never expected him to speak like that, to reveal vulnerability behind the mask of power. "Redemption?" she asked softly. "Yes," he said. "Even someone like me can change if they choose, and I want to choose, but I cannot do it alone." Her heart ached at the honesty in his voice. The centuries of loneliness and power, the weight he carried, pressed down on him, and yet he was willing to risk everything to protect her, to be better for her. She began, but her words faltered. She wanted to say so much, but the fear of the unknown, the fear of being pulled into a world she could barely understand, made her silent. Caius stepped closer, the air between them charged with unspoken emotion. "I will not force you," he said softly, "but I will be patient. And I will wait for you to understand what is already here." Alara looked into his eyes, seeing both darkness and light, centuries of pain and a strange, fragile hope. She wanted to step into that light, wanted to trust him, but the shadows of her past held her back. That night, as she slept in a room filled with the scent of old stone and candle wax, she dreamed. The dreams were vivid and strange, filled with visions of battles, kingdoms lost, and a man with eyes like storm clouds reaching for her. She woke with a start, heart racing, the echo of his voice still lingering in her mind. "You are mine, whether you know it or not." The next morning she found him waiting in the hallway as if he had never left. "You dreamt of me," he said simply. Alara froze. I don't understand. How? Caius smiled faintly. Dreams are a door. Sometimes the world reveals itself in ways we cannot see while awake. You are connected to me, even if you do not fully know it. She shivered, a mixture of fear and awe coursing through her. This is too much. I don't belong here. You belong where your heart chooses to go, he said gently. And your heart is already here, whether you realize it or not. Days turned into weeks, and Alara slowly began to understand the strange rhythms of the castle and its master. Caius did not force her to accept him, but he guided her gently, showing her the hidden corners of the realm, the beauty and danger intertwined in every shadow. She learned that he was powerful, not just in strength but in wisdom. He could command shadows, sense intentions, and move through the world with a grace that seemed otherworldly. Yet he was not cruel. He protected her, taught her, and slowly allowed her to see the man beneath the king, the heart beneath the centuries of solitude. And yet the tension between them grew. Every glance, every touch carried weight. Every word was laden with unspoken meaning. They were drawn to each other, yet both knew the dangers of surrendering completely. One evening, as they walked along the castle ramparts, the moon casting silver light across the stones, Caius paused and turned to her. "There is a choice you must make," he said softly. "You can stay here in safety and learn to trust what is in your heart, or you can leave and risk the world that waits beyond these walls." Alara's heart pounded. "And if I leave?" she asked, though she already feared the answer. "I will not stop you," he said quietly. "But know this, leaving does not mean escaping me. You are a part of my life now, and that bond is not easily broken." Her chest tightened. She wanted freedom, but she also felt the strange, impossible pull toward him. Every part of her wanted to run, yet another part longed to stay to explore the strange, dangerous world he offered. Before she could answer, a noise echoed from the hall behind them. Footsteps, slow and deliberate. Caius tensed, eyes narrowing. "You are not alone," he said, voice low. From the shadows, a figure emerged, a woman cloaked in black, eyes sharp and calculating. "So this is the one," she said, her voice a whisper like silk and steel. "The human who has captured the king's attention." Alara's heart raced. Fear surged through her, but Caius's presence was steady, protective. "Who is she?" Alara whispered. "She is a remnant of my past," Caius said, jaw tight. "Someone who wishes to see harm come to those I care for, and she will not stop until she has what she desires." Alara swallowed hard, realizing for the first time the full weight of the world she had stepped into. This was no longer just about fear or escape from a toxic ex. This was about survival, loyalty, and a bond that could not be ignored. The woman stepped closer, her eyes cold. "Step aside, Caius, or the human suffers." Caius's eyes blazed, a storm contained within the calm of his expression. "You threaten her at your own peril," he said, "and I will not allow it." Alara felt a strange mix of terror and awe. She had never seen anyone move with such precision and quiet power. Every muscle in Caius's body seemed ready, controlled, yet fluid like water. The woman paused, sensing the depth of his warning. Slowly, she backed away, disappearing into the shadows from which she came. Caius exhaled, turning to Alara, his expression softening. "You see," he said gently, "even in this world there are dangers, but I will always protect you." Alara's chest tightened. She wanted to protest, to say she could take care of herself, but the truth was undeniable. She had already begun to trust him, to rely on him, not just for protection but for something deeper, something she could not yet name. And as they stood together under the moonlight, the wind whispering through the towers, she understood a truth she could no longer deny. Her life, her heart, and her fate were now entwined with the stranger who had kissed her in the rain, the vampire king who would not let her go. The night was heavy with mist, the moon hanging low and blood-red above the forest. Alara's heart pounded in her chest as she ran, the crunch of leaves and broken branches echoing in the silent woods. Behind her, shadows shifted, moving closer with a predator's patience. She didn't need to look back to know that danger was near. She could feel it in her bones. Caius moved beside her like a shadow himself, silent, powerful, yet careful not to touch her unless she needed him. His eyes scanned the darkness, glowing faintly with the same storm-like intensity that had captivated her weeks ago. She was frightened, yes, but not of him. She trusted him. That trust was a fragile, trembling thing, yet it anchored her amidst the terror that chased them. "They're close," Caius murmured, voice calm but tense. "Stay behind me and do not falter. Your strength is as much your shield as mine." Alara nodded, breath ragged. She had been terrified when she first arrived at his castle, overwhelmed by centuries of power and the weight of his history. But now, facing the threat of the woman from his past, she felt something she hadn't expected: courage. Not the fearless kind, not the reckless kind, but a courage born of trust, of knowing that they were in this together. They rounded a bend and the figure stepped into the faint moonlight. Cloaked in black, the woman's eyes burned with malice. "You cannot hide," she hissed. "She is mine, and you will see that I take what I desire." Caius's jaw tightened. "You overestimate yourself," he said, voice low and steady. "You forget who stands before you." The woman laughed, sharp and cruel, stepping forward. "I know exactly who you are, Caius. But even kings bleed when the right arrow strikes. Step aside or she dies." Alara's chest constricted. She wanted to run, to hide, but she also felt a strange strength rising inside her. The fear was still there, but it was joined by determination. She would not be a pawn in someone else's war. She would fight, even if it was only by standing her ground. Caius moved in front of her, every step fluid, controlled, a predator ready to strike. His presence was commanding, terrifying, yet protective, and she felt a flicker of warmth in the dark. "You will not harm her," he said quietly, eyes never leaving the woman. "I will not allow it." The woman paused, sensing the power radiating from him. She glared, lips curling in contempt, but did not advance. "This is not over," she whispered before melting back into the shadows. Alara exhaled, heart hammering. She looked up at Caius, eyes wide with a mix of fear and awe. You didn't even touch her," she said, voice trembling. "I didn't need to," he said softly. "Some battles are won with presence alone, but the danger is not gone. She will return." Alara shivered, suddenly aware of the fragility of life and of trust. She had thought she was only running from her past, from a toxic love she had fled in the city. But now she understood. The world she had stepped into with Caius was larger, older, and far more dangerous. And yet, she felt a strange peace, because he was with her. Because he had chosen to protect her. They continued deeper into the forest, toward the ancient ruins of the citadel. Broken walls rose like the bones of old kings, and the wind whispered through the cracks, carrying secrets of battles long past. The red moon cast long shadows, making the ruins appear alive. "Why do you fight for me?" Alara asked suddenly, voice small. "Why not just leave me?" Caius paused, looking at her with something almost tender in his stormy eyes. "Because I cannot," he said simply. "And because I do not want to. You have awakened something in me, something I thought was long dead. I fight for you not because I must, but because I choose to." Her chest tightened. She wanted to step closer, to reach out, but hesitated. I don't know if I can trust myself," she whispered. "Trust yourself," he said gently. "Trust the choices that brought you here. You are stronger than you think, stronger than the fear that grips you now." The ruins opened into a courtyard, moonlight spilling across crumbled statues and broken pillars. In the center, the shadowy figure from before waited, now joined by others she could barely see. The air was thick with tension, electric and sharp, as if the forest itself held its breath. "Stay behind me," Caius said, his voice low but firm. He placed a hand gently on her shoulder, not in dominance but in reassurance. "We face this together." Alara nodded, heart racing, courage rising. She felt fear, yes, but it was paired now with resolve. She would not run. She would not hide. She would stand because standing meant living, and because Caius had shown her that life could be more than mere survival. The figures moved forward, shadows twisting unnaturally, like they were part of the darkness itself. Caius's presence expanded, a silent command radiating from him. The air seemed to hum, alive with the energy of his power. "You will not harm her," he repeated, louder this time, voice echoing through the ruins. "I give you one warning. Leave or face consequences you cannot survive." The shadows hesitated, flickering uncertainly in the moonlight. Then, with a whispering hiss, they advanced. Ilara's hands shook, but she did not falter. She took a deep breath, grounding herself, and focused on the presence of Caius beside her. She could feel the rhythm of his strength, the steady pulse of his power, and it steadied her own. The figures closed in, and the wind rose, carrying with it a strange, almost musical vibration. Caius moved like a shadow among shadows, his movements precise, fluid, and controlled. Ilara watched, awed and terrified, as he faced them, not with anger but with the quiet authority of centuries. The leader of the shadowed group stepped forward, the woman in black. "You think you can protect her forever?" she hissed. "Even kings fall." Caius's eyes blazed. "Even kings protect what they choose, and I have chosen her." The shadows recoiled slightly, sensing the intensity of his resolve. Ilara could feel it too, a tangible, unyielding force that radiated from him, encompassing her, shielding her from harm. And then, in a moment of quiet clarity, she realized something. She was not powerless. The fear, the terror, the sense of helplessness she had carried for so long, it was no longer hers alone. She could stand with him. She could face the darkness and not be afraid. "You don't scare me," she said, voice trembling but firm. "I will not run, I will not hide." Caius looked at her, eyes wide with surprise and pride. "Ilara," he murmured. The shadows seemed to waver, uncertainty creeping into their movements. The woman in black hissed, anger flashing, but even she could not break the bond radiating between them. Caius and Ilara, standing together, were a force stronger than fear, stronger than darkness. Finally, the shadows withdrew, melting back into the mist from which they came. Silence fell over the ruins once more, broken only by the soft wind and the distant cry of an owl. Ilara exhaled shakily, heart pounding. She had faced fear and survived. She had stood beside a being who was not entirely human, yet had proven that trust, courage, and choice could overcome even the deepest darkness. Caius reached for her hand, holding it gently. "Do you see?" he asked softly. "You are not just alive, Ilara. You are strong. You are brave, and together we can face anything." Tears pricked her eyes, though she did not lower her gaze. I think I understand now," she whispered. "Not just you, but me too." Caius's eyes softened, storm clouds fading into a gentle twilight. "You have grown so much in so little time, and yet this is only the beginning." She smiled faintly, exhausted but alive. "Then we face it together." He nodded, and for the first time in centuries, he allowed himself a small, genuine smile. Not as a king, not as a predator, but as someone who had found connection, hope, and perhaps even redemption. The red moon hung over them, casting silver light across the ruins, illuminating the bond that had been forged in fear, trust, and courage. For Ilara and Caius, the night was no longer a place of shadows and threats, but a beginning of trust, love, and the slow transformation that comes when two hearts meet in the storm and refuse to let go. And as the wind whispered through the ancient stones, carrying the secrets of centuries past, Ilara understood something she had never known before. Sometimes, the choice to stay, to trust, and to face the darkness is the only way to find the light. She looked at Caius, and in his stormy eyes she saw not just power and danger but something else. Hope, redemption, and the possibility of a life together, stronger than fear, stronger than shadows. The night was still, the forest breathing softly around them, and for the first time Ilara felt free. Free to choose, free to love, free to stand beside the stranger who had kissed her in the rain and had never let her go.